Joining us now, Louis Danker, President of the Union of Jewish Students. Thank you for joining us on the programme this morning. Your reaction to yesterday's events?
Look, well, thank you for having me. Like the rest of the Jewish community, I'm devastated, heartbroken by yesterday's attacks. We have 2 people who've been murdered and more injured just for being Jewish, standing outside a synagogue. The Jewish community has been braced for something like this for many years, particularly given the rise in anti-Semitism since October the 7th. But nonetheless, it is shocking. I can't shake the feeling of dread in my stomach this morning. And really, really heartbreaking news.
There have been so many statements from leading Jewish figures and politicians. I'm thinking of the Chief Rabbi's statement that talks about anti-Semitism on the rise, talking about it in different facets of society. And in a number of statements, UK campuses have been highlighted as a particular target where anti-Semitism is on the rise. Perhaps you can give us an insight into the Jewish student experience on campus in the UK right now.
Yeah, look, in the year after October the 7th, we saw a 413% rise in anti-Semitic incidents on campus. That's according to the Community Security Trust. And a lot of that, we've seen the glorification of terrorist activity, and we've seen violent language. There's been a normalization of anti-Semitism, anti-Semitic rhetoric and violent language. And the truth is, violent language breeds violent acts. We can disagree, but we need to be able to do so without resorting to extremism and violence. And look, Jewish life on campus is strong, it is thriving, and it will persist. But we are facing challenges, for sure.
Are you well supported? Because some of the experiences I've been listening to and relaying here on Sky News is that anti-Semitism perhaps isn't being taken as seriously as those affected by it would like. As a student, if you are the victim of anti-Semitism on campus, do you feel well supported?
Look, we at the Union of Jewish Students spend a lot of our time in conversation with vice-chancellors, in conversation with government. In the past 24 hours, I've had conversations with government at the very highest level about bolstering that support and security for Jewish students on campus. We're working with vice-chancellors, university leaders across the board to help create that security. But the reason we create that security is so that Jewish life on campus can persist, so that it can not only survive but thrive. We have Jewish students attending events on campus in a higher number than ever before. They're seeking out Jewish communities. And it's our job at UJS and at the Community Security Trust to protect that and help secure it and allow it to thrive going forwards.
Can I ask for your view, if I may, about protests and the timing of them? We're talking about pro-Palestine protests, one of which took place in central London, just a few hours on from this terrorist attack on British Jews. There is one planned for Saturday, which organisers say will still go ahead. I'm sure we can both agree on the right to protest and to have your voice heard. But in terms of the timing of these protests, what are your thoughts on the fact that they are still going ahead in just, 48 hours on from a terrorist incident against the Jewish community?
Look, protest on campus is something Jewish students have been dealing with for 2 years now. Too often in those protests, the language, and not all protests, but some, verges on violent. And that language is part of the root cause of what we've been seeing in the past couple of days. So we are concerned about violent language at protests across the board. I'm particularly concerned next week about the 2nd anniversary of October the 7th. There are protests arranged on campuses around the country on that day, which I think is deeply troubling and deeply disrespectful to the victims of the October 7th attacks 2 years ago. So certainly I share your concern, Jewish students share your concern about protests, and we're in conversation with the government and with university leaders in order to take action.
Yeah, what are the measures in place for Jewish students in the UK? Because we focused a lot talking over the last 24 hours about heightened security at synagogues. Of course, yesterday, a holy day, more holy days coming up for those of the Jewish faith. We know about securities in Jewish schools, but what about on campus?
I think the first thing to say is that it's not normal for Jewish school children and Jewish students to need security at their events. And I know the British public are horrified to see that that is the case. But that is the reality that we live in. So we work incredibly closely with the Community Security Trust, with university leaders and their campus security teams, and with local police liaison officers. I welcome the government's move to provide more security and more police to Jewish buildings in the coming days. And we're working around the clock to ensure that we can protect our Jewish campus events. Because now more than ever, Jewish students need their Jewish societies on campus. They need the Union of Jewish Students there with them, supporting them as they navigate these difficult times.
Louis Danker, I really appreciate your time here on Sky News this afternoon. Thank you so much.